Di Resta, obviously better known for being involved in racing. It all started here at Larkhall many years ago when I was probably 3-4 years old. Built my way up to start racing when I was 8 years old. And from there, I guess it went from club racing to national, to then British Championships. And from there on in, I've obviously went through racing cars and finally achieved my goal of racing Formula 1. I'm now still actively involved in Formula 1. I'm on the other side of things in Sky Sports F1, and the media side of things, which is something that's very different, something that I never thought I'd be falling across at the age of 34, but at the same point, still being involved in Formula 1 is something quite good. Racing is obviously what I want to do. It's a difficult world out there at the moment where I am, still racing the World Endurance Championship, having just finished DTM last year. But I've been one of the lucky ones to achieve, your hobby, profession, and to get to the top of it. Whether I achieved all the goals I wanted to do, no. And I think anybody that did achieve that in sport would be lying. But at the same time, I can look back and say it's been an epic journey. Hopefully still many years ahead of me to try and achieve something else. Well, I think the most important thing, it's been the most local place I started at. My dad started racing here, I started here, then my brother started here. I think for my dad it was important that I did do it here, because the journey that my dad went through with me to get me where I am has been something. And my dad's still actively around the kart circuits. And I had to make sure that moment that he got to see his grandson do it. And I think he's slowly but surely been pushing him into it. He's buying the Skeletrics, buying the toy cars and all the rest. And when I said to my dad I'm thinking about a car, he actually said I did it 2 weeks ago already. So he was already ahead of the game, which I always knew was going to happen when Leo got to a certain age, and he's 4 years now. And I think I have to give him the opportunity to say if that's what he wants to do. He's passionate about Formula 1. He loves to see the races. Obviously it's a bit different when I'm standing there interviewing drivers. He knows I race myself. So I think at the moment he's a bit confused at where that side of things are, but already when he's done his first laps here, he's already talking about what lines he's taken. And I guess that's just from the general chat that me and him have when we're playing with toy cars and how we build tracks at home. I've raced with Lewis all over kind of Europe and none more than here. Lewis is a similar age to me. I think there's only 11-12 months between us, and we raced the different categories. He was always sometimes a year ahead of me because of that age gap. How crucial that is in karting and what the difference it makes. But at the same time, we've had our ups and downs. I won, he won, and we've raced against each other right at the top at Formula 1. He has been slightly more successful by a long way. But he's had a better journey, and you've got to be in the right place at the right time, but you cannot take away what he's achieving at the moment. He is going to break all the records. He is going to be the most successful driver ever to be in motorsport, I guess, with the numbers. And still seeing him do what he does, wheel-to-wheel racing, he excels. So you've got to say he will be respected. He will go down as one of the greats, like Stirling Moss, like Jackie Stewart, like Jim Clark, like Michael Schumacher, Fangio. He will be regarded in that league. I've obviously got evidence of that. And when you go to Grand Prix and you see the likes of him and Max Verstappen battling against each other, that is the best the sport can offer. I think the biggest thing about karting, it's got to be a family journey, but that individual themselves has got to want it. How do they know they want it? I'm not really sure what the answer is to that. It wasn't really, as far as I can remember, back to myself being in that position. I was desperate to do it because I was at the racetracks with my dad doing it. Leo, myself, has had that chance. I see how focused he is when he's at the track. I see his attention to detail. He's got OCD like me in terms of how he lines his cars up. And then it goes into if the family are into it as well, I guess the journey is a little bit different. It's a little bit easier. It is quite a special place. I think the families involved in motorsport are very different people. It can be passionate. There can be anger. There can be all sorts going on there. But at the same point, it's such a nice place to be. I think it's a nice environment. It's competitive, but I don't know any sport at the top that's not competitive, and how people go to do that. But one thing with karting, I think what it requires more than going to a football game, it requires preparation, and that's where I think the family element comes into this. And that's why if you work as a unit, and if your parents can do it themselves, it can be such a great bond, and that bond can certainly go on like I've had with my father all the way through my career, and still speak every day, and still speak 3-4 times a day when I'm racing, because the interest is still there. There's a certain point you've got to let go, and there's a certain point that you probably don't take advice of your parents, even as a kid at the racetrack, because you think you know better than your parents. But if you can get over that, and people can do it the right way and be disciplined enough, I think it's one of the best things that I can give advice to people, because I think it does get the weekends and get that time well spent. Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I met my wife. She's been through the journey of the racing car side of things for me when I was, in Formula Renault, then getting picked up by Mercedes, going through as a junior, then getting a professional contract, slowly but surely building up the ladder till you reach the top, and that was Formula One. And I think she's seen that with Leo. If that's what he wants to do, we cannot deny him that chance, because I've done it and I've had a great experience in it. I can only say great things about it, and if I can give him that opportunity, I'd love to be able to. But if that's the same thing, if he wants to do football, wants to do golf, tennis, then we'll support him as much as we can. I think sport is a key thing to young people, because I think it keeps a focus into something, and that competitive nature is a great thing in life, I think. There's obviously been some great people come up here. You can mention Alan Ganesh, David Coulthard, Dario Franchitti, who obviously is my cousin. But there's been many more names, and you go back even further, there's been good people. Scotland had a very good run for a long time. I'd like to see some more juniors come through, some guys in their teens. I don't know, I don't follow karting well enough because I'm so busy on the road, but there are some young guys coming through at the moment. Dexter Patterson, Dean McDonald, guys who are making that next jump into it. And I can only hope they've got the back end, the funding, because it does get quite tense when you go up there. I know that their families are into it as well, fully into it. And I think, I saw them as young kids when they were running about the paddock when I was here with my brother, before they were even in karts. So I know what it is to get there myself, and I just hope the next generation continue to come through, because we've always been well represented, Scotland, at the top of racing. And at the same time, I know I've got fewer years left than I do have what I've had, and it's up to these guys to do the good to continue that. I'm very biased to the old track, because that's where I did my damage, as you say, and that's where I've had my memories. I understand it was always on the short side of the track, but at the same point there is still that bit of the track still there if it needs to be used. The biggest thing for me is the impact has been made around the facilities, the paddock, and that's one of the things that needed to move on with time. The track itself, you have to extend it. You're very limited with the space you've got, and you can't take the actual character away from it. But it's nice to see it has went on with time, because I think you need to follow other tracks in the country. And anybody even down in England, anybody I talk to, and like you said, the interview I did with Lewis Hamilton, they still remember Larkhall for what it is. He wouldn't know it's changed, and I think he'd probably be shocked if he saw it. But at the same time, you can't always say what was in the past is for the future, and things should move on. I think it's nice to see the investments there and the stability here, which is key to karting in Scotland. I've always enjoyed the last bit of the lap, coming down the hill through the chicane into the final corner. It's always been one of the places that was always great for overtaking. I think it had a great balance of speed. It's not too slow, not too quick at that point there. And I think one of the things I do like to see with the track is getting used on it. It's getting daily use. You can see the corporate world, you can see people here, and that is what's going to take this track to the next level. If you can get more people here at the time, you get more people in the sport, and then more people in the sport means more income, and it can just be spread. And maybe something I won't see in my generation, but you certainly hope the next kind of stage of life it still continue to go on. And I hope even my kids, if they're into it, start to come here, because it's been on here. It's a shame, because I've seen the likes of Goldsby, Banff and Crail, which had great numbers when I was racing, and they've just deteriorated. where Larkhall is based is always going to attract more people because of the population in Scotland and because of what it is to the British Championship. But it'd be nice to see those clubs supported as well, along with that, and the interest here will help that. You need to be good in the wet, don't you? Because it's generally wet. It's always been about flow at Larkhall. I think that's been the biggest thing. It's relentless. It's quite physical. I've always felt as well when it was very short. The feeling here as well. With age, it's getting more bumps as well, which brings another aspect into it. But it's one of those ones that always sticks in my mind as it's one of the great tracks in the UK. It always creates good racing, and it always has done that. And I've done endless amount of laps around here, and I never get bored of it. But it will continue always to lead the way in that sense, because I think the people as well, that not only the people that are involved with the club, but the people who are running teams have been here so long and know the business so well. They will always guide as best as they can the people that they bring along with their teams, and the people who are entrants into each event. I'll say Monaco for obvious reasons. Wet. Bamabeel. Irn-Bru. Karting. Auto. Neither. F1.